Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I'm doing another Prepping 101 video because there is an urgent, people should be looking at this with a sense of urgency because we are looking towards a global food crisis. And yes, I'm using those words there, guys, famine and depopulation. Now, if we go by the definition of a famine, which would be, and I'm just reading this off the United Nations, a famine is defined as a severe, widespread food crisis officially declared when at least 20% of the population faces extreme food shortages. That's where we're going, guys. At least a famine. I don't know what the next stage up from a famine would be, but that's where we're heading right now. And this will naturally lead to a depopulation as people, depopulation, as people can't afford food, as people can't afford to feed themselves. That will lead to the inevitable, right? We kind of all need food. And if there isn't enough food to go around, that's going to happen. Now, when I'm talking about this video, when I'm doing this video, I want everybody to understand the contributing factors. So I'm going to be talking, I'm going to go in slightly, I'm going to be going down one angle, all right, because I just won't have time to do everything. But think about the other stuff I've talked about in other videos. In Iran, the Strait of Hormuz is closed, 20% of the world's oil. Diesel, petrol for farming, sulfur for agriculture. The knock-on effects to that are huge. Then you've got the energy structure that's been destroyed all over Europe, all over the world. All these things are contributing to the energy shock, right? Now, I'm going to give you some advice. You know what? I'll do it now and I'll do it at the end, all right? Try and grow your own. That's my advice. People need to start growing their own stuff. This is going to be a long game. I feel this is going to be a long game. So yes, you can put an extra loaf of bread in the freezer. It's not going to last. We are talking something at this scale now. So I think like planting fruit trees in your garden, having the ability to grow vegetables, growing whatever you can, because they will continue to replenish, right? Apples, plums, pears, bananas. I know we don't get bananas in the United Kingdom, right? But growing your own food right now, I think, honestly, the next time you go to a supermarket, right? I'm kicking myself I didn't. The next time you go to a supermarket, I went to, what is it? It's either B&M or Home Bargains. I walked in and they were selling 2 apple trees for 12 quid. I walked in, I thought, oh, that's a good deal, but they had them before you get your basket. So I was like, oh, that means I have to go back out. I'm kicking myself I didn't get them now. There was only little, but guess what? You plant them and they grow. So I'm absolutely kicking myself. We have got apple trees in the garden. We've got apple trees, plum trees, cherry trees, walnut trees, one walnut tree. So, we have got a fair amount of fruit in the garden. However, I think we need more, and use that phrase. Get that mindset. You need more. So you see these channels, right? And they're telling you to prepare food and, have an extra tin of beans. And guys, listen, if you're thinking about buying something to store, you need to start thinking about storing it for years, because the short to medium term storage of food, it's not going to work. It's going to go out of date. This is going to be a gradual, what I've seen and what you guys have seen. Things don't happen quickly. They happen slowly to stop that mass shock. The data points are here, guys. The data points are absolutely here now. And the word inevitable, I think, is fair to use. There is, if we use the definition of the word famine, a severe, widespread food crisis officially declared when at least 20% of the population faces extreme food shortages. I think we're going to have a global. It's hard to say we're not going to have a global famine. So what I'm going to do is I've got a video to share with you guys. I might do it first or after. I'll share this video with you guys first. This is, I think his name is Neil McCoy Ward. He does some great content. He does some fantastic content. He's on YouTube. So if you guys want to jump over to his channel and give him a thumbs up, give him a like, a share, a subscribe. Tell him I sent you. So I'm going to be sharing one of his videos. Where are we? And then he's doing like a reaction, and I'm going to be doing like a reaction to his reaction, if that makes sense.
We have a shock announcement today as the EU has declared that food rationing will...
I'm not going to share the whole of this video. I'm just going to share the first bit, and then I'm going to come on to an article that was released today. And I'll tie all this in together.
Be coming. They have found no solution to the current problem and crisis. And if you remember, it was the 1st of April when they first said there was a 3-week deadline and they would reassess the situation at the 3-week point.
You see, I don't think it was that long. If you guys remember, when all the food agencies out in the United Kingdom, they were saying, "Oh, if we don't get any fertilizer, any CO2, any fuel coming out of the through the Strait of Hormuz, we're going to have food shortages," right? And guess what? That's not happened. So when I talk about the wars and the conflicts and everything that's happening in the Middle East, the bombs dropping don't really matter for us in the United Kingdom. It's the food coming out, right? It's the products coming out of that region.
That's now where we are at. We are at the 3-week point, and Lagarde...
We're actually over the 3-week point.
...has made an announcement. Now, there's a lot of videos and articles and all sorts of other things that I have to show you today. And then at the end of the video, if you stick around, I'll actually give you some guidance, especially if you are not more of a prepper, if you want to use that word, and you want to know what the impact of that could be, what sort of foods to actually have at home.
And honestly, like, I'm going to keep repeating this over and over again. I don't think the time for having a little bit of extra food in your pantry is there. He's using Canva, actually. He's using Canva to do his thing. Anyway, so you need to start growing your own, guys. That's it. Period. Right? Whether that's planting an apple tree in your garden or as many apple trees as you can. What's the harm in planting apple trees in your garden? You know, that's what people need to do. Apples, plums, pears, get them in your garden, because that's the stuff that we're not going to have.
In your kitchen, pantry, we can talk about all of that. But let's get on to the most important thing first then. And this was a speech from Lagarde.
So like I said, you know, I'm doing like a reaction video to a reaction video for the first part. And then I'm going to talk more into this. But it's really interesting in this video as well, because those of you guys who've been following me for a while, when I watched this video, I was like, wow, he's like saying exactly the same stuff as I'm saying. And I'll give you guys the analogy, right? When you have a plumber come round, right, and you ask the plumber what the problem is, and he tells you it's this, then another plumber comes out and he tells you it's the same thing, and then another plumber comes out and he tells you it's the same thing. Guess what? Probably that, right?
Interest for agriculture. Don't forget, I was Minister of Agriculture in France for a month and a half.
Such a weird way, firstly, to approach such a serious topic, but that is what some of these people are like.
But because it matters to me as a central banker now. Because if the price of food increases significantly, it is not going to just be the price of food. It is going to be inflation expectations.
Oh, I just want to say, this is a really key thing that I distinguish here. Whenever any of these sort of globalists, if you prefer that word, talk about things, notice how they speak about them. She didn't say, it concerns me as a human being, because hundreds of millions of people could die of famine and malnourishment. She said, it concerns me as a central banker. and she talked about interest rates.
You see, I always think this, I've started to think about this. Like, where does that money go? Do you know what I mean? Right? Like, we all know that we have to go to the bank, right? To get a loan for a mortgage or whatever. And then you pay them their interest, right? And then that goes somewhere. But then where does that money go? Like, you know what I mean? Where does it go? Who does what with that money? And why don't governments, why doesn't the government give why doesn't the government give interest-free loans to families who are married and have children who want to buy a house? I don't know. Do you think that would encourage, do you think that would encourage people? I think it would encourage people to get married and have children. Why don't the government do that? We're all, we're good at paying people's rent. We're good at giving people handouts, but we're not good at, the government's not really good at helping people. And that's all governments. Sorry, we're talking about food shortages.
Because we know that people are particularly attentive to two things: the price of food, processed and unprocessed, and the price of gas at the petrol station. So,
yeah, we're cooked on all those, right? We are cooked on all those.
Here are three indirect consequences of what's happening in the energy world. So if the disruption persists long enough, the adjustment shifts from prices, which we are putting up with now, to possibly rationing.
Rationing. So she's talking about rationing food. She's talking about rationing fuel as well.
With very different economic consequences.
There we go, rationing.
Higher prices are primarily inflationary. Shortages hit output directly and are worse for growth. Overall,
again, she seems so focused on the wrong things here. All she seems to care about is growth, GDP, inflation, when the real crisis is going to be coming in when these shortages hit.
There have been so far limited signs of supply chain disruption, both globally and in the euro area. But local tensions are visible. Jet fuel prices have roughly doubled.
Okay, so earlier on, someone was saying on the chat that nobody's going to run out of jet fuel. The price of jet fuel's doubled. If you have a holiday planned this summer, it may be your last if you even go on it.
Since the outbreak of the conflict, and rationing has been imposed at some individual airports in Europe since early April.
So rationing, so what she's saying there is fuel rationing has been imposed in some airports since early April. Now, let's put this into the broader context of there's still nothing coming out of the Middle East. The Middle East still closed, right? Closed but closed is. The amount of energy infrastructure outside of Europe, inside Europe, I guess, as well, that's been either mysteriously blown up, mysteriously set on fire, mysteriously stopped working, is phenomenal. And this is all eating into that cauldron of chaos, right?
And I'm not talking about what's happening in the rest of the world. I'm just back from the IMF and the World Bank spring meetings, like many of you, and you might have bumped into colleagues from Asia, in particular some of the low-income countries or emerging market economies that are taking a much more severe hit than us.
So I've said this quite a few times, that the low-income countries, the poorer countries, they're the ones who are going to be struggling the most because they can't afford the higher food prices. They just can't afford it. Now, what that's going to do is that's going to is driving mass migration. Think about it. If you are in, I don't know, Wakanda, right? Just imagine Wakanda Falls, right? Or whatever. And you're there, you don't have fresh water to drink. You don't eat every day. You don't have any shelter. And then you're looking on your phone and you're seeing people in hotels in the UK. Or you're seeing people in prison and you're like, oh, is that a prison or is that a hotel? This is going to drive so many bad things. And I've not even started on my monologue yet.
Are moving into rationing.
So what we're now going to see, in fact, let's go through some of these articles here. This just came out from the FT. This is the professional, the coming global food crisis. And this was a very...
Okay, so a good friend of mine, an analyst, he said to me, Sean, he said, if you want to know what's coming in the future, look at the money. Because people with money know what's coming, right? So articles from the Financial Times, you know, they are usually ahead of everybody else.
Interesting read. I'm going to just go through and give you some of the key points I've highlighted from this. And then there's so many articles that I could show you. In fact...
Now, just in a second, he runs through in a second. I'm going to close this down in a second. I'm going to close this video off in a minute. I'll give you guys my monologue. Watch the articles that he goes through, and I've shared all the same articles with you, right?
Why don't I give you a bit of context here? Because there's so many videos and articles that I think many of you might not have seen, and it's really crucial. So this was
so the UK is going to be hit the hardest by the war because we're an island and we import most of our stuff. So this is talking about the war in Iran. And again, these articles don't factor in the contributing factors where all the infrastructure is being blown up, it's been set on fire, all the other stuff around this. They're just focusing very blinkeredly on the little waterway.
Come back to this in a second.
Yeah, I've done this. I've shared this article with you guys. Carbon dioxide scarcity. I've shared this with you.
Britain faces food shortages because of Iran war. The UK...
I've shared this exact same article with you guys as well.
Gaps on supermarket shelves by summer.
This exact article, I've shared it with you.
UK prepares for food shortages in worst case scenario. We have, as Iran crisis drags on, fears of global...
I'm assuming I will have shared that with you. I think that's from Al Jazeera. I've done that one.
Food catastrophe. Look at the wording they're using. Grow. While global food prices have risen modestly so far, the full impact of the conflict has yet to be felt.
And that is true. The full impact is yet to be felt because we still have food that's in warehouses. They still have food that's that's being moved through. It's cycling through. But very soon, this is all going to grind to a halt. There's no way around that now. There is absolutely no way around that. Now, I'm going to start with my monologue, guys. I am. In the subject to this, I'm using the word famine. Now, for this demonstration, the word famine, I'm defining it as a severe, widespread food crisis officially declared when at least 20% of a population faces extreme food shortage. I know there's probably nothing in it, right? But it's very easy to visualize that 20% of the world's oil comes through that little strait in Iran. So it's very easy to put those two 20% together. But the reality is, the problem's a lot worse, right? The problem is a lot worse than that. So hang on, let me just share this headline. So now we've got all that to consider, right? We then have this one. World food system pushed into the brink by extreme heat. So now if we think about all these things coming together, we've got fertilizer farming, we've got oil, we've got gas, we've got the Strait of Hormuz closing, we've got the war in Ukraine, and now to add to that factor, we've got world food system pushed to the brink by extreme heat. So extreme heat is now actively threatening the entire global food system, according to a joint report from the UN's food, and I'll put that, in fact, I will put that link in the description down below if you guys want to read that yourselves. So extreme heat is now actively threatening the entire global food system, according to a joint report from the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization and the World Meteorological Organization. We are pushing food supplies in many parts of the world right now to the brink. That's what they're saying. Farmers in some of the hottest regions across India, South Asia, tropical Africa, and large parts of Central and South America could soon find it physically impossible and unsafe to work outside for as many as 250 days per year. That's more than 2/3 of the year. You simply cannot grow food if the people who grow it can't go into the fields. The impact on livestock's already brutal. Heat stress kicks in for most animals around 25 degrees Celsius. Cows produce far less milk, and what they do produce is of a lower quality. Pigs and chickens, which can't sweat, suffer digestive failure, organ damage, and heat stress as temperatures climb. And as temperatures climb, so does the mortality rate among that livestock. Crops are suffering. Once temperatures consistently exceed 30 degrees Celsius, yields start to drop sharply. Corn is shut down to around 10% in key areas. Wheat is close behind and expected to fall further as global temperature pushes past 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. Heat damages plant cell walls and triggers toxin production. At sea, marine heat waves are stripping oxygen from the water and killing fish populations on a huge scale. We're on this little, we are on like this little pale, a pale blue dot. We are on this pale blue dot, guys. We're all part of the world, right? We're all part of the world. This is not a problem for somewhere else. This is a direct threat to the food on your table, in your fridge, in your cupboard, in your pantry, and the stability of prices in our supermarkets. When harvests fail and supplies tighten, the shockwave doesn't stay in the global south or wherever that is. They hit global markets, and that means higher food bills and shortages right here in the United Kingdom and Europe. The report is quite clear. Much of this is predictable. Heat waves don't come as a surprise anymore. Simple early warning systems using mobile phones and better forecasts could, protect livestock and maybe help harvests. But the reality is, whether you want to say that it's man-made or it's a natural part of the Milankovitch cycles, I would say it's the latter. The Earth is warming up. That's the reality. Now, this cycle of failing yields forces to bring more land into production, which releases even more, which causes even more problems. So we're having diminishing returns on our yields because of the heat. We now can't use fertilizer because we're not getting enough, which means you have to use more space. And then more space and more space means more workers. More workers means more cost. More cost means that sometimes it's just not worth doing it. Now, the UN, this week, the UN's report, what I'll put down to the bottom, should be a global wake-up call for everyone. The extreme heat isn't just uncomfortable, it's destroying crops and having a knock-on effect to billions of people. I don't think there's a way back from this now. And my advice to everybody is the same as it was at the beginning. Start to grow your own food. you know, I'm not going to talk about tinned food. When this starts, your tinned food's going to be irrelevant. You know, your couple of loaves of bread in the freezer is going to be irrelevant. Like, like, if you can now, just try and think how you would with nothing. So just imagine, put yourself in this scenario, right? You don't have any food, right? Put yourself in that position right now. You've got no food, nothing, absolutely nothing. There's no food at the supermarket, none. There's none in your shelf, none. What would you do? What would you do right now? You don't have access to food. What would you do right now? Right now, wherever you are, wherever you're watching, right now, all your food's gone. What do? You're going to go hunter-gathering? Do you know how to go on hunter-gathering? Do you know what, you know, what plants and shrubs and berries you can eat, wildlife and stuff? I don't know. There's a course actually, just at the farm up the road from me. I went the other day. To because they do like this foraging course, and you can, I don't know how much it is, but you go and they'll walk you around and show you like what foraging shrubs and that you can eat. I went the other day to see if I could get on it. They don't do it till the summer, and I'm like, yeah, of course they don't do it till the summer, because like that's when all the plants are out. So they're not running now. But I'm going to do that. And what I would say is, put yourself in that situation now. No food. You can't get food. There's none in the supermarkets. What would you wish you had have done a year ago? That's what you should be doing now, right? So I don't know, maybe, look, guys, and these things may be as draconian as, look, everybody's situation is different. These things may be as draconian as, you know what? I'm going to move out of this flat. I'm going to move out of this city. I'm going to find myself a house with a garden that I can grow stuff. Because I do think these things are coming, guys. I don't even think it's, there's so many alarm bells ringing right now. So many alarm bells ringing. And they're just getting worse. You know, you've got this alarm bell ringing over here, pointing towards a food shortage, then another one, then one over there, then one over there, and all the information's out there. It really is. Right, I'm going to jump onto the chat, and I'm going to try and close this at 30 minutes. David is saying, we need to be slightly more self-dependent. We need to go back to the basics. Yeah, like, listen, if you live in the United Kingdom, and you can, my advice to everybody would be plant at least one apple tree. Like, just try and plant fruit trees in your garden. Like, you know, the next time you're going out and you're buying, like, I don't know, pretty flowers, think, no, I'm not going to buy pretty flowers. I'm going to buy a fruit tree, whatever that may be. Northern Hillbilly, listen, Northern Hillbilly, I'm looking at your thumbnail, and I can pretty much guarantee Northern Thumbnail that you're going to be okay. I think Northern Hillbilly is going to be okay for feeding himself and his family. He's saying all information you get is a lie. Globalist warming trick on stupid. I do think global warming is real, guys. I do. I'm not convinced it's man-made. Okay, so what we've got to understand is there's two different aspects of this. There is global warming, and we know that, like, it was a lot hotter, right? We know that it was a lot hotter when the dinosaurs roamed, right? Because there's like fossil records and stuff. There were no cars. When the dinosaurs were roaming. So we know that the Earth heats up and cools down. We know it does that. It's something called the Milankovitch cycle. Sorry. Let me find the Milankovitch cycle. Give me a second. I need a graph. Hang on. I think it's the Milankovitch cycles. Hang on. Yeah. So this is the Milankovitch cycles. So this is the Milankovitch cycles. Describe the collective effects of Earth's changes, changing the Earth's movement on its climate over thousands of years. So if we go down to like here. So this is the, if you guys look at the temperature there, if you guys look, so this is the Milankovitch cycle. You guys can find this pretty much anywhere. You guys can see there, right, that there is the red line. That's the temperature. So that's the average temperature, I believe, on. So that's the temperature. And what you can see from those Milankovitch cycles is we get hot, we go cold, we go hot, we go cold, we go hot, we go cold. And those cycles are, you know. So the Earth is heating up. There's no denying that. There's no, you know, as far as I'm concerned, there's no denying that. Is that man-made? I'm not convinced it's man-made, but, you know, the Earth is heating up. Dinosaurs had cycles. What, like little bikes, little dinosaur bikes. The Earth is warming itself up. Yeah, and people don't think about the sun as well. The sun is getting hotter. All dinosaurs I see were paper mache, okay? Paper mache dinosaurs. Cindy is saying it's not new. I think she means new. There's always been droughts. Paul's planted some strawberries. Well done, Paul, for planting strawberries. Can we all give Paul a round of applause for planting strawberries? And Rod Panhard is saying, this is why they changed global warming to climate change. We are currently in a grand solar minimum. I thought we was in a solar maximum. Are you sure? I'm pretty sure we was in a global maximum. Oh, Googlinus is saying, the Prime Minister fails to deny Cabinet split over handling of Mandelson vetting scandal. Medical data of 500,000 Britons listed for sale. Well, there you go, guys. There you go. Maybe the Chinese are going to, like, you know, bioengineer some sort of weapon to come and attack people. Look, we knew that your data is now a commodity, and it's just being sold. It is, guys. It really is. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I do want to close this video down. This was a Prepping 101 video. There's more information, and it grows daily now, and it's pointing towards a global food crisis. And a famine is going to lead to a lot of people, you know, being depopulated. Now, the definition of famine I'm going with is the UN definition, which is 20% or more of a population in severe, in severe food shortage. And that's where that's where we're going, guys. It really is. And my advice to everyone is just to get ready now. I don't think having an extra couple of tins of beans or tinned vegetables or whatever in your basement is going to help. I really don't. I think people need to have more self-sufficiency and rely on themselves more. Before I go, can you do me a real big favor? Can you do me a real big favor before I go and hit that like button, guys? It helps me out so much. It really does. Whack that help button. Whack that like button. The Watchman is saying Starmer's done. He should. Look, guys, I keep saying this. I do. I keep saying this. Stormer's going nowhere. He's really not. We'll see. We will see. We will see what happens, right? I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think Stormer's going to go anywhere up until the point of mobilization or conscription. And then maybe he will go. But until then, I don't think he's going anywhere. Anyway. Yeah, and then the Watchman, but will he? I don't think he will. Sean, keep an open mind. David... Can you imagine that? I mean, honestly, like, if you want to think of a dystopia, like, that is it. David Lammy doing a wartime speech, right? Cindy Archer is saying it's nature's way of keeping the population down. Or, if you want to go into it, or could it be that humanity is ready for a harvest, and the aliens are just getting ready to come and harvest? Dan is saying, I can see more swans going missing. Yeah. Right. Anyway, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close it down. You guys are fantastic. Make sure to share my stuff in your socials. If you guys have not done so already, please hit those buttons there, especially the subscribe, the like. All those buttons really do help me out. And I will catch you guys later. I think I'll be back on at... I think I'll be back on at 8 unless something huge happens. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I bid you good afternoon.